Now, Hitler was a very bad person who wanted to conquer the world, and Henry VIII had 6 wives, divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. To critics, that is about as good as it gets with the teaching of history in secondary schools in England. Critics say that we must do better. Joining me now is historian Kate Williams. That was slightly tongue-in-cheek, but it's a bit that way.
Well, people have this idea that, you know, kids aren't taught history correctly, and it's very worrying because the average 13-year-old does history for 1 hour a week. And I think what's happened is there's been a lot of focus on targets over the past couple of decades in which schools are really focusing on maths and English and science, and history gets squashed and gets pushed down, and students are encouraged to give it up. And whereas, you know, obviously to me, I'd say this, but it is one of the most important subjects we can study, not only to understand our history in this country, but also because it's a practice. You learn to sift evidence, to compare different sources, to work out which is true. And life has, I mean, I left school, there wasn't much of an internet. Now children leaving school, they're surrounded by different pieces of evidence, and it is vital they learn to sift them, and history is so important in that.
I agree with you. But there is the issue of narrowness as well, as I jokingly said about, you know, Hitler's a bad man and Henry VIII had 6 wives. It's such a wide canvas. It's got to be pretty narrow for young folk to get their heads around it.
Well, we have a lot of history in this country to try and get it all done, and European history, and the fact that, you know, Europe is our history. And so, you know, when you think about the Victorians ruling a quarter of the world's population, so much of the world history is British history. So it's vital to do it all. But this is kind of, these MPs have been saying we need to focus much more on British history, and we need to focus on the chronology, and we need to really look at the chronology of Britain and the chronology of the world. And I think that's a very important suggestion, because really, how do we understand if we kind of do the Victorians and then we go back to the 16th century and then we go forwards? I think it can be really vital to start early. You know, children in primary school, they love history. They love the Romans.
I was going to say,
they love the centurions.
My age group remember 1066 and all that, as in Hitler being a bad man, and my own kids love the horrid histories. An effort is being made to populise it.
Well, you're right, Alistair. And, you know, in the popular world, in the world, we love history, historical films, historical books, historical TV programmes. It's just in schools it's being a bit squeezed. And I think children they have the potential to love history. They love the stories. We just have this stereotype sometimes. It's about learning dry, dusty dates. And it's not. It's about learning why we live in the world today. And it's vital when we look at the modern world.
Good. Kate Williams, good to talk to you as always. Thank you very much indeed.